Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Reading Rule, y'all. After wrapping up my last video on Jeff Zentner's The Serpent King, I realized that it might be helpful to hear how I might approach teaching this book, what activities I might include for readers to consider as they process the text, whether those readers are in rural places or suburban places or urban places. So I decided to put together this video to talk a little bit about some things you might consider doing, whether teaching this as a whole class text or as part of a book club unit or even as part of an independent reading project. As I mentioned in the previous video, one of the things that I loved most about The Serpent King was how much it helped me feel seen. You know, growing up, I remember sort of having these two competing notions of who I was as a rural person. One, I understood that for my family, there was a huge sense of pride and appreciation for being rural, having connections to the land and seeing something grow because of the work you put into it, loving wide open spaces. I really connected with that. But I also came to understand, especially in school, that the way we talked was improper and that rural people were ignorant and backward. And one of the ways you could tell if somebody was rural was by the way they talked. And so all of those things being super connected, and that rural people were, I don't know, somehow less cosmopolitan and worldly than city folks. And just in general, somehow lesser than city folks. I watched shows like Friends, and I read books that seemed to always take place in the city. And so I daydreamed out in the middle of cornfields and out in the woods about one day moving to the city, because that's what I felt like I was supposed to aspire to. You know, there was a common narrative all throughout high school, especially in senior year, about finally getting out of this place, you know, and this idea that in order to be somebody, you couldn't be a rural somebody. But that's not true. So finally reading a book that featured rural characters and reading about those characters' struggles regarding their own wanting to get out of their town helped me think about who I am in really important ways. And then discovering Zentner's Instagram and seeing the way that he admires and values and sees the beauty in rural places and people in his real life, that was pretty transformative for me. Seeing somebody else value the things that I felt so desperate to leave really changed the way that I thought about who I am and where I'm from. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to consider those things until long after I'd left my K-12 schooling career. I sort of wonder now how it might have changed the way I thought about leaving and staying gone. Maybe I would have thought more about how I could stay, well, really, how I could return after college, since there isn't one in my hometown, but how I could come back and use my gifts and talents to keep breathing life into a once vibrant but now sort of die-in town. So anyway, if I were teaching this book, whether in a rural or suburban or urban setting, and whether as a whole class or book club or independent reading, I would invite students to think about those very things, to give them opportunities for them to ask questions about how they do or don't feel seen and what that means about how they understand themselves as people and readers. In reading notebooks or quick writes or bell ringers or small and whole group discussions, students could consider, how does this book make me feel seen or not? Where are the connections and disconnections, and what does that tell me about myself as a person and a reader? As part of a longer assignment, students could do research on the place connectedness of their author and ask questions through social media investigation, like, who is this author? This could create even stronger connections between them and the text. And so many authors have Instagram accounts nowadays that getting to know them that way could help establish reader-writer connections that could inspire all kinds of cool things. Students could even reach out to them by crafting Instagram book reviews or book talk book reviews through using TikTok. Jeff Zentner tags people who have reviewed his books all the time. It can also inspire them to build a to-be-read list. For example, I follow Leah Johnson on Instagram. Her most recent book is You Should See Me in a Crown. And I saw that she posted a picture of her sister who recently graduated from college. And looking at the insignia on the graduation robe, I realized that her sister graduated from the small college in the nearest big town to my tiny town. And so I looked her up. I looked up her bio on her website, and I realized that she's from the same area of Indiana as me. Like, what? Now I want to read all of her books, and I realized once again that real people become authors too. So I realized that this isn't a super technical breakdown of a lesson to use with this text, but I'm hoping that it gives you a helpful jumpstart in designing a lesson that works best for you and your students wherever you are. Thanks for visiting. Y'all come back now, would ya?